How's it going, everyone? A couple weeks ago, I did a video on Christmas and its pagan origins, and you all seem to really enjoy that. So today, we're going to be talking about New Year's and its pagan origins. Should Christians celebrate New Year's? What exactly are the pagan connections to New Year's? Aren't we just celebrating the first day of the year? Well, those are the questions we're going to be asking today. In order to answer those questions, we'll be listening to Pastor Tom Robinson, Dr Hershael York, and Dr Bob Thiel. So, without further ado, let's jump into what Dr Bob Thiel has to say.
Dr. Thiel, what are the origins of the New Year's holiday and its relationship to January 1st?
As far as January 1st, Julius Caesar in 46 BC declared January 1st would mark the beginning of the new year. Now, January was named after Janus, which is the god of gates and doors in Roman mythology. People prayed to Janus if they wanted something new in their lives, like resolutions. Janus is normally pictured with two faces, one looking to the past and one looking to the future. And the first day of the month of January was sacred or holy to him. Now, the early Christian church, including the Catholic ones, we didn't celebrate things like New Year's. And Tertullian, who was one of the Church of Rome's respected historians, said, however, this problem was creeping into their church. He warned that New Year's gifts must be caught at, and people were keeping basically pagan holidays. He says the majority of people he was associating with now were doing what the heathen did. And he says, we're not supposed to do these New Year's gifts and games with the noisy banquets and stuff. And we should not do it. We're supposed to let our works shine. And he considered this to be a form of idolatry.
Wow, okay.
So he said he felt that by keeping these days, it made Christians appear to be followers of pagan gods. And he said that, since the pagans wouldn't celebrate biblical holidays, why should people who profess Christ celebrate pagan holidays?
Good point.
Now, New Year's is also, by the way, observed in honor of the goddess Strenua or Strenea. And she was a goddess of purification and well-being. And it's also partially because of her, we believe that New Year's resolutions and vows are now made.
Are you suggesting that the New Year's holiday may actually be honoring a specific demon, similar to those Jesus cast out, rather than simply participating in a universal day of drunken debauchery?
Well, New Year's clearly has demonic origins. As far as from a Christian perspective, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, starting verse 19, wrote, "What am I saying then? That an idol is anything, or what's offered in idols anything? Rather, that which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I don't want you to have fellowship with demons." Now, the Catholic Encyclopedia, by the way, wrote that Christian writers and councils condemn heathen orgies and excesses connected with the festival of Saturnalia, which was celebrated at the beginning of the year. And Tertullian blamed people who did this as well. And these presents were called Strenæ, from the goddess Strenea, who I mentioned before, who presided over New Year's Day. And so actually in the 6th century, the Greco-Romans had a council of Auxere, and it forbade Christians to do this. And it was called Strenis Diabolicus Observa. Now, my Latin's not that great, but that says this is a pagan, a diabolical or demonic observance to do New Year's. And so they were told they couldn't do this. They couldn't go to the pagan dances, etc. And so they said, look, you're observing the time of the devil, is what a Greco-Roman council declared. Yet people keep it these days. And as far as this time of Saturnalia, many keep that these days too, but it's also a holiday that would be condemned in the Bible.
So, with all the warnings issued by the Roman Catholic Church against the observance of New Year's Day, how did they come to celebrate it?
A good question.
Well, New Year's Day didn't become a holy day for the Roman Catholic Church until 487 AD.
Okay.
They declared it to be the Feast of the Circumcision. Now, In ancient time, in the Bible, talks about the children of Israel to circumcise their sons at the 8th day.
Right.
Well, 8 days counting December 25th brings you to New Year's. Now, the reality is that Jesus was not born on December 25th. As a matter of fact, we recently did a broadcast on that.
Yeah, we
But they
recently did a
decided
video
to
on it too.
call that if they declared Jesus was born on December 25th, even though Roman Catholic scholars say it was impossible to square that
Right.
with the Bible, then therefore the Feast of Circumcision could be January 1st, and therefore they will do it. So that's what happened. And it was observed from the Roman Church from 47. And then the Anglican Church started to observe it in 1549. But it's not a biblical holy day, and
Yeah,
we
it's
in
not
the
biblical
Continuing
at
Church of
all.
God don't keep it.
So, since there is no feast of circumcision mentioned in the Bible, are you suggesting the Roman Catholics created a non-Christian holiday in order to celebrate another different non-Christian holiday?
Yeah, and I think it gave them justification. See, they wanted to tell people who didn't know the facts about, for example, Jesus could not have been born December 25th, that, okay, this is okay to do because it's the Feast of the Circumcision. And we know that this happened because, in Luke 2:21, it says, and when 8 days were completed for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Jesus. So they say, shouldn't we celebrate this? But there was no command there to celebrate this at all. But they started to do this, but they tied it in with December 25th, even though the Church of Rome didn't start to celebrate it until the 4th century. This is after Emperor Constantine in 336 declared it should be kept on the day of the pagan holiday for the birthday of Mithras, which was a deity that Constantine worshipped. And then in 354 AD, Bishop of Rome, Liberius, declared that, or ordered people to celebrate it on December 25th. So that wasn't happening before. And as I mentioned before, Roman Catholic scholars say that the Bible doesn't teach that, but they endorse it anyway. And again, they did condemn it. Now, I want to read something else. This is from the Feast of the Circumcision from the Catholic Encyclopedia. Even in our day, the secular features of the opening of New Year interfere with the religious observance of the circumcision, tend to make it a mere holiday instead of a sacred day. Augustine points out the difference between the pagan and Christian manner of celebrating it. The pagan feasting and excesses were to be replaced by Christian fasting and prayer. So that's what the Church of Rome taught. Yet, if you look at people who actually keep New Year's, they're not fasting and praying. Well, they might pray because they want something, but it's not a day of prayer and fasting. It's basically a prayer of drinking. And so you've got Roman Catholic writings that condemn modern practices associated with New Year's celebrations, which most of them still keep or currently keep.
Okay, I don't know about you, but that was incredibly interesting to me. The fact that our modern New Year celebration, January 1st, is actually commemorating a Roman deity by the name of Janus, and that's where our the idea of New Year's resolutions comes from. That's interesting. Here's an article from almanac.com because I want to dive in just a bit more to get more context on all of this. In 2000 BC, the Babylonians celebrated a new year during a 12-day festival called Akitu, starting with the vernal equinox. This started the farming season to plant crops, crown their king, and make promises to pay their debts. One common resolution was the return of borrowed farm equipment. The Babylonian New Year was adopted by the ancient Romans, as was the tradition of resolutions. The timing, however, eventually shifted with the Julian calendar in 46 BC, which declared January 1st as the start of the new year. January was named for the two-faced Roman god Janus, who looks forward to new beginnings as well as backward for reflection and resolution. The Romans would offer sacrifices to Janus and make promises of good behavior for the year ahead. And that's exactly what we do today. I've celebrated New Year's my entire life, and I'm sure the vast majority of you have as well. I mean, we don't do anything vulgar, anything like that. We'll watch the ball drop, we'll do fireworks, and that's about it. But to find out that there are pagan origins tied to even New Year's resolutions was shocking to me. In fact, in my research for this video, I found out that pretty much every single holiday that we celebrate has ties to pagan customs. But we'll get into that in future videos. Right now, I want us to look more into that calendar, and then we'll finish off with the last two speakers. The reason I want to look into this is because just like December 25th is not the actual birth date of Jesus Christ, is January 1st even the actual beginning of the new year? This is another article from almanac.com, how our calendar came to be. Today, we followed the Gregorian calendar, but it's based on the ancient Roman calendar believed to have been invented by Romulus, who served as the first king of Rome around 753 BC. The Roman calendar, a complicated lunar calendar, had 12 months like our current calendar, but only 10 of the months had formal names. Basically, winter was a dead period when the government and military weren't active, so they had only names for the time we think of as March through December. So March, we're starting off with March, was named for Mars, the god of war, because this was the month when the active military campaigns resumed. And you will notice as we go through this, our months are named after pagan deities. March, May, June were also named after goddesses Maya and Juno. April is thought to stem from the Latin aperio, meaning to open, a reference to the opening buds of springtime. The rest of the months were numbered. Their original names in Latin meant the 5th, 6th, 7th, right? September, October 8th, November 9th, December, Deca 10th, right? It makes complete sense. Eventually, January and February were added to the end of the year, giving all 12 months proper names. January, as we know now, was named after Janus, the Roman god of beginnings and transitions. February's name is believed to stem from Februa, an ancient festival dedicated to ritual springtime cleaning and washing. I mean, it only makes sense. If our holidays are based on pagan customs, our calendar is founded in paganism as well. So the Romans initially looked at March as the first month and December as the 10th, not the 12th. Did the Jews think the same way? What does the Bible have to say? Regarding the Passover, Exodus chapter 12 says, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, 'This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.'" Now, what is this first month? What is this month? Here is Deuteronomy chapter 16 with our answer. "Observe the month of Abib to keep the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night." So there you have it. The first month, according to God, is the month of Abib. The month Passover took place. Now, the question is, how does that line up with our calendar today? What we have here is a table from the 1775 Bible that recently went viral. It's called a table of time, and it breaks down the calendar, the months of the calendar. So what you'll see here is the year starts off with the month of Nisan, or Abib, as the first month of the year, and it goes all the way down through to the last month, Adar, as the 12th month, but there's a 13th month, Viadar. So just to clarify what that is, it's an additional month that's added for the Jewish leap year, just like our February 29th, except the Jewish leap year occurs 7 times in a 19-year span. But coming back to the first month, what you'll notice is that Nisan or Abib doesn't align perfectly with our calendar. It doesn't align perfectly with March. It's somewhere there in between March and April. But it makes sense. This is spring. This is a new beginning. This is the start of the year. I mean, so looking at that and then looking at our modern day current calendar with January as the first month, it's a dead month right in the middle of winter. It just makes you ask questions, you know? Okay, so now that we've looked at the calendar and sorted that out, I want to take it back to scripture. So without further ado, here is Pastor Tom Robinson.
Some think that New Year's is purely secular. It has nothing to do with religion. And that's not true. Even if it is secular now for most, it started out as false worship, and the Bible speaks about that. I'd like you to turn over to Deuteronomy 12, and verses 29 through 32 is basically where we're told, you know, when you go into the land from these pagan nations, take heed to yourself, verse 30, that you're not ensnared to follow them after they're destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. I'll do what they did in the service of their gods. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abomination of the Lord which he hates they have done. I mean, to the point where they even would sacrifice their children, which was horrendous. But he's not just saying, well, you can do everything they do except for that really bad thing. He just means don't imitate their customs.
Right. Okay.
Whatever I command you, verse 32, be careful to observe it. You will not add to it nor take away from it. That is, you're not going to take anything from their pagan customs. That doesn't mean we can't just honor God anytime doing anything in God's service. We're not going to take things from pagan customs. But some argue, well, this only applies to customs that are used for worship. It's okay if there's no religious attachment for us, like maybe Valentine's Day or Halloween, even for some. I think there's nothing religious about that. St. Patrick's Day and New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Well, all of these still have a religious association for many professing Christians in the world. But even if they don't now, or if they don't for you, God did not just want his people to avoid customs associated with pagan worship. He said to remove all vestiges of it from their midst, as they had power to do so. I'll look back at verses 1 through 4. It says, these are the statutes and judgments in the land, or statutes which you should be careful to observe in the land which the Lord your God of your fathers is giving you to possess all the days you live on the earth. That is, these are the things which you will be careful to do all the days you live on the earth. You shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations which you dispossess serve their gods, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. And you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down their carved images, their gods, and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things. So not only do you not worship God with these things, you just get rid of them altogether. So you can't say, well, I could just use it for, something just for fun, not for worship. Well, no, God says he doesn't want any of that. He wants it all gone. But there's nothing here in particular about particular holidays, but pagan holy days may be compared to holy places. Brethren, New Year's is a celebration that the true worshipers of God should take no part in. To do so would essentially be retaining a pagan high place in your life, which God condemns. Turn for our last scripture to 1 Peter 4. Here in 1 Peter 4, 3 through 5, you don't go along with the world. Here's what you get. Peter says, for we have spent enough of our past lifetime in doing the will of the Gentiles, that is the heathen nations, the pagans around us, when we walked in lewdness, lust, drunkenness, revelries, drinking parties, and abominable idolatries. In regard to these, they think it strange that you do not run with them to the same flood of dissipation, speaking evil of you. They will give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. And so will we, brethren. So we must be careful not to go along with the world. Yet some Christians may think they can do this, that they can go along to get along or just have fun and not really be part of it. But they are deceiving themselves, and frankly, their accepting of a pagan high place in time is a high place in their mind that must be torn down. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 10, 4 through 5, that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ.
To be honest, he made some very compelling points, and I feel like he will agree with Pastor Gino Jennings on what he said in our Christmas video. But is making a New Year's resolution really that bad just because it was initially done by pagan people? I mean, we know, obviously, the idea of setting goals is not pagan, but it's just the way it's done and when it's done. And now we know the origins of it all. And now, after learning all this, I understand its ties to pagan customs. I'm sure many of you watching this right now are taking a second look at how you celebrate New Year's yourselves. But here is one last perspective I want you to listen to as well. Without further ado, here is Dr. Hershael York.
One of the enduring traditions of celebrating New Year's is the making of resolutions. And sometimes people wonder, should Christians do that? Well, I think it's always right to take the opportunity to renew commitments, to make some changes of habits and disciplines in our lives. And because of the start of a new year, that is, I think, a great time for Christians to take a good, honest view of their lives. What do I need to adjust? What do I need to change? And so I think it's right to make New Year's resolutions.
Okay.
But let's keep them in context. First of all, in the book of Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talked about the taking of oaths. And indeed, what we say should be, that should be enough. So when we talk about making a New Year's resolution, we don't mean taking an oath. When I make a New Year's resolution, I understand that the very fact that I'm having to make the resolution means this thing is a struggle, whether it's about losing weight or exercising more or a spiritual discipline of reading the Bible more or more prayer. But a resolution is a declaration of my intention. So I think it's healthy for a Christian to have resolutions, to say, here's the way I intend to live. I intend to engage in this kind of activity that will result in better health. I intend to read my Bible and to pray in a disciplined way every day, because those declarations of intent become our habits. So I think it's a good thing to have resolutions, but when we make them, let's make them with all seriousness, and then let's keep those resolutions. It's not the same thing as taking an oath. We're not vowing that we will unfailingly do these things the way we might take an oath when we get married. We vow to be faithful every day of our lives. When I have a resolution to eat less, for instance, I know there are going to be days that I don't exactly abide by that. So if you make a resolution and then you find, it's hard to translate that into habit, and you constantly have to remind yourself, it's important that you don't get discouraged, because discouragement is often the enemy of sanctification. So don't get discouraged. Just keep going back to it, applying the grace of God, applying the power of the Holy Spirit that the Lord has put within you to keep the resolution that this is a thing that honors the Lord. I want to be faithful to it. So if indeed you don't stick to your diet, you don't read the Bible every day for a while, then you remember the resolution, well, then go back to it. Don't walk away from it because you're discouraged, but say, no, it was right that I made it in the beginning. It's right that I take it up again now, and keep at it until I build this as a habit into my life. So I think it's a good thing for Christians to take stock of their lives, to say, what do I need to adjust as I enter a new year? This is a new opportunity for me to be more faithful to the Lord. What are the things that need adjustment? And I think that's good.
All right, that's it for this video. This is giving me a lot to think about, and it's making me actually want to go back and look at Christmas again. So let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comment section. What did you think about what we covered today? There's a lot, but I really want to know what you think. So let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.